We've seen how to find an element and how to read the element's content or value. Now let's look at how to write to an element. In our Guess a Number game, we want to display too high, too low, or you win on the page. The user shouldn't need to look at the console. Let's jump right back into the demo. Once again, we are back in VS Code with our Guess a Number folder open on the left and our page running in the browser on the right with the developer tools open. In the JavaScript code, after we've compared the user's guess with a random number, we want to display a message on the page. If the user guesses again, we want to add another message to the page. To accomplish that, we need an element on the page that will contain these messages. In the index.html file, above the Play Again button, add a section element. Inside the section, we'll add a div element. Let's give the div element an ID attribute of feedback so we can easily find the element from our JavaScript. In the index.js file, we start by locating our new div element. At the top of the file, where we locate our other elements we need, we'll add a constant for our div element and name it feedback container. Recall how to find the element? Since we gave it an ID attribute, we can use document.getElementById, passing in the ID attribute value, which is feedback. Now we have a reference to the div element. Earlier in this course, we covered the properties we use to read an element's content, such as innerHTML, textContent, and value. We can write to any of those properties as well. We want to write HTML to the feedback element, so we'll use the innerHTML property. Scrolling down to our processGuess function, above our logging down here, we use the variable that references the element, feedback container, dot innerHTML equals feedback text, semicolon. And for best practice, let's put an if around this code, ensuring we have the feedback container reference. Be sure the ending curly brace is after the statement. Let's try it out. Enter a guess in the text box, click the Guess button, and we see the feedback text written to the div element. Nice! Now let's try something. Click on the Elements tab of the Developer Tools, navigate down to the section and the div element, and we see our content. We've successfully updated the DOM. Cool! Click back to the Console tab. If we guess again, the same message appears, and it's hard for the user to know whether it worked. Let's instead add each new feedback message to any existing messages so the user can see all of the messages. To add or append to already existing content, we use the plus equals operator. That adds our new content to the existing content. In the browser, let's play again. We'll put in a number, click Guess, and we see the feedback. Put in another number, click Guess again, and we see the second feedback message. But it's a bit hard to read. We really want each set of feedback on its own line. So let's add a BR or break element before assigning the feedback text. Let's try it again. Type in a number, click Guess, and we see the message. Guess again, and we now have the second message on a separate line. The only bummer is that the user can't see what their prior guesses were. Let's make two improvements. First, we'll include the user's guess in the message. And let's provide a hint, telling the user whether they are too high or too low. First, I'll introduce you to template literals. Let's go back to the slides for a moment. A template literal is a fancy way to work with text that allows entry of multiple lines and variable placeholders. Template literals must always be enclosed with backtick characters, not quotes. That defines it as a template literal. Template literals can contain any text, including multiple lines. To display the value of a variable within the text, use a variable placeholder. A variable placeholder begins with a $sign and then the variable name, enclosed in curly braces. Here is the result. The guess, which is 19 in this example, is appended to the beginning of the text, and the browser ignores the extra new line after the 3 dots. Let's head back to the demo. We'll try out some template literals and provide a too high or too low hint for the user. In the code, we'll add the guess variable to the feedback text using a template literal. First, we change the quotes to backticks. On my keyboard, the backtick is above the tilde. We change it here and here. Then we add a variable placeholder for the guess. Inside the backtick, we start with a $, then curly braces, and insert the variable name, which is guess. Pause the video now if you want to do the else block on your own. Are you ready to see my answer? Both blocks are similar. Be sure to use backticks around the text. In the browser, let's play the game. Enter a number and click Guess. We now see the guess as part of the feedback message. That will definitely help the user. Lastly, let's add a bit more logic here to provide a hint. Let's change the first message to is correct, you win. Let's change the else to an else if, and add the decision criteria. Here we'll check for the guess greater than the random number. The feedback message for this case is too high. Then we add an else block and set a message of is too low. I'll copy and paste the prior message and change the text.
Shall we play a game?
Enter a number, click Guess. The hint provides a much nicer user experience. Let's guess again. And one more time. And we win! To finish up our game, let's hide the Play Again button until the user wins. And when the user clicks the Play Again button, reset the game. But first, let's go back to the slides. So, we write to an element using the same properties we use to read an element's content. Use innerHTML to write HTML content. With innerText, we write an element's textual content, but textContent is often the preferred choice. Use textContent to write an element's textual content. For example, we can change the content of a button. Use value to write an element's value. For example, we could change the value of an input element, initializing it to a good default. Use a template literal to format text for display. Be sure to enclose it in backticks. Next up, let's look at how to hide and show elements. But before you go, consider dropping a comment, clicking a like, or subscribing.